Whenever you open the book of your student is already, as long as the book is shared to your student. So there.
Shared screen, miss.
Yeah. So have you tried using Google Docs?
Not very sure if I still remember.
Okay. So our teaching style online is just very simple. So here are the things or our teaching method. So like I've said, we're using Google Docs. Okay. Then how to share. So definitely you know how to share. For example, your student doesn't have the book yet. Do you know how to share the book?
Shared screen, miss.
No, that's different. Shared screen, it's more on Skype, right?
I'm going to. Yes.
Okay, so if you are on your orientation packet 1 on the upper right corner, do you see their share?
Yes, miss.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
going to share this to.
yep, exactly. So you just have to enter your student's email address and then there. So as long as the main owner of this book can, give approval, then definitely your student would be able to see it or even, do any changes. And then next, we do have color coding. So for color coding, we have very obvious wrong. We use red. And then correct if it's yellow. Mispronounce, that's orange. Green if your students need to remember it. And lastly, homework for purple. So how are we going to use that? This color coding. Do you have any idea?
I will have to type. For example, there's a wrong sentence. So will I have to type it in this color?
Okay, you're a bit close to the right answer. So can you go and scroll down, go to page 2. So page 2, that is a sample of a student book. So this is exactly how it looks like. But on the 3rd page, you'll definitely see here the option. So it's actually written, or it's in this part, you'll be able to modify or edit the text or even sentences highlighted. So what we normally do, for example, this is the book of your student. So first, especially if your student is beginner, you read it first. But of course, you don't need to read everything at once. So you have to divide it. It's up to you. How are you gonna, attack, or your strategy on how you're going to start the class. But normally, you have to read it first. So, can you go ahead and read the first paragraph?
I'm sorry?
Can you read the first paragraph?
Okay. People have different attitudes toward living. Some seek self-oriented happiness without any consideration for others. To them, happiness means wielding political or economic power over others. But most of these people turn out to be disappointed in their pursuit of happiness. Since man's desire is endless, nothing can fully satisfy their needs.
Okay. So you started reading it first, then you're gonna ask your student to read it. So for example, I'm your teacher, and then I'm done reading it, then you read, right? So I highlighted the word attitude. Attitudes, actually. So you pronounce it without an S. So you have to highlight it with what color?
Orange.
Okay. So for example, there's a lot of words that was highlighted in orange. Then you have to go over, and then you have to let your student pronounce it. Sometimes you really have to ask them to pronounce it more than 3 or 5 times. Yeah, okay? So that's an example on how you're going to use color coding. Now, if it's wrong, so for example, your student is already creating, or let's say saying something, and the grammar is wrong. So you have to make sure you have a copy of their sentences, especially those incorrect sentences. Okay?
Do I have to ask them, Miss, to type the sentences that they're going to say, or ask them to write chat or type sentences?
So there, it's up to you. So for example, you weren't able to catch up what your students have said, and you may ask them to type it, but most of the time we are the one who's actually taking note of it. So you have to listen carefully. And normally what we do is that whenever our students, for example, paragraph 1, you started discussing it. What can you say about the first paragraph? So, of course, your students started telling something about first paragraph. Then you have to observe, take note of their, answers and incorrect sentences. Then you have to take note of it. Like I've said, what we normally do is type it on the book itself, but then there is a notion or indication that, oh, the students is aware. If you're already typing, they know that their sentences are incorrect. So, we wanted to avoid that feeling that if you started typing, the students already knew that they already have incorrect sentences. Yeah. So, as much as possible, you can have a notepad. Well, for me, what I'm doing is that I have a notepad, and one of the other teacher had a feedback for me when I'm having class is that she cannot hear that I'm typing. So as much as possible, your student cannot hear that you're typing. The other technique is that you can write down, ball pen, and then at the end of your class, then you just have to type it on the book. Yeah. Okay, so that's more on the wrong sentences. And so, for example, can you tell something about the first paragraph, Richie?
Oh, the first paragraph talks about the difference between or amongst people and how they seek happiness or fulfillment. It talks about others having it politically, others in terms of um, their own desires.
Okay.
So more commonly, everybody has a different way of expressing or saying something about their happiness.
All right, good. So, of course, what you've said, everything is right. But if your students normally they started, people have different attitude. Sometimes they will just read what's written on the paragraph. So, if let's say different people happiness. For example, this is what they said. So do you see it? The difference people happiness. For example, that's what your student say about this paragraph. So you just need to highlight it with red, and then beside it, then you have to correct the sentence. Yeah. Okay. So that's more about color coding. But with a correction, can you move to page 4?
Sure.
So we're only teaching for 55 minutes. and then 5 minutes for you to fill up a class record. So, and the first 10 minutes of your class, so it's up to you. You could start a warm-up discussion, ask what they did, how's their day, you know, the normal getting to know each other first before you start with the discussion of the book. So it's like you're setting the stage first. And as much as possible, avoid dead air. The discussion should be spontaneous. Even though your student, for example, is writing the sentences, you have to make sure that there is no any dead air. Maybe you're still talking, explaining the activity.
If I will be talking.
Yeah, that's
or
fine.
They might feel like.
Or you could ask your student while they're typing their sentences, you know, they could just read it aloud. So students or so, you know, you could ask them to do that just to avoid dead air. So in that way, the students is not only focused on writing, but also, you know, their pronunciation, their speaking, because we wanted to make sure that we're targeting not just how they pronounce words, but also when it's, you know, they're writing sentences. So there. So that's actually one of it. Avoid dead air as much as possible.
Yes.
Well, sometimes I'm guilty about it, but like I've said, as much as possible, we wanted to avoid it, okay?
But there are some students in this that they're like distracted when you're saying something and they're thinking about answering a question. So wouldn't it be rude, or it would be sometimes okay if, especially if there are students who are like teenagers. Like I had an experience before. I was like teaching this student, and then all of a sudden she just told me, "Teacher, you're actually distracting me." So I was like, "Okay."
Okay. But, well, of course, like I've said, it's up to you how you're gonna attack your students. So that depends on, you know, you definitely know your students somehow, but if that's the case, for example, since you'll be just starting, what possible things can you think of when you had that incident or that experience with your student?
I did keep quiet for a little while, and then because I was actually chattering, it was actually a little noisy. Maybe she was bombarded with a lot of things I was saying. So therefore, I just asked her, okay. I just told her, okay, just tell me if you're done. Something like that. But it was like a slap on my face.
Who is that? Is that your baby?
Yeah, she just went inside the room, but my cousin is taking her now.
How old is she?
She's a year and 6 months.
The same age with my son. He's supposed to be sleeping right now. I don't know why they're still awake. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, because...
They don't actually sleep at like 9 o'clock in the evening. She's mostly awake until around 10.
Wow. Well, I trained them to sleep as early as 7 because I'm started teaching at 8 p.m. onwards. So
they wake up early as well?
Yes, at 6 or 7 in the morning.
That's a bit different.
But right now they actually sleep late in the afternoon. That's why they're still very active. Okay, so going back. Well, it's a good thing for you. You have someone who would look after. But for me, you know, this is actually my problem. So, well, anyways, just sharing my life just a bit. So there, for the discussion, most likely it's just 30 minutes. So it's just like, you're for me, I'm definitely enjoying whenever I'm teaching. It's like I'm not just teaching, I'm also learning at the same time. But, since I'm a parent and I'm just working at home, I have an access to the outside world, something like that. And then, yeah. So you're just more on having discussion, having activities, but on the other hand, your students is actually your students are learning there. And then next, so 15 minutes for you to correct the students' mistakes and give them feedback and inputs. So normally you could, for example, start correcting, let's say, if your students had a lot of mistakes, then you could start correcting at 8:45, for example, or 8:40, so that you'll be exactly ending your class at 8:55. Okay, so there. That's where the correction is actually took place. So it's the highlighting of red and highlighting it with yellow. Yeah, I'm sorry. As much as possible, we need to avoid adding photo because, it defeats the purpose of, you're trying to let your student think more, for example, describing, the photo, something like that. Okay, so that's it. So do you have any questions, Richie?
If it's part-time, it's most probably what time do I usually or will I be starting?
Usually it starts at 7.
7.
Yeah. So 7 till 11 or 12, because there are students who wanted or starts their class at 11 p.m. But for me, the latest, or that's only up until 10 to 11 p.m. So
be okay also with minutes, for example, around 10 or around 11.
yeah, that can be. That depends on, because Miss Michelle is the one who's gonna plot your schedules or your student's schedule. So you just have to make an arrangement with her. So just like for me, I have another work or job, and it's actually starts at 9 p.m. So it's actually, it's like I'm doing a job at the same time. So I just need to end at 11 p.m. only. So
you're also working in another company?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So
it's allowed. Online also.
yeah, it's also online. But before I started actually teaching, I have already this job. So I just add this as my part-time job. So Miss Michelle knows about it. So there's not any problem about it.
How many teachers are in this?
Well, technically, we are just only 3 teachers, but then since the other teacher will be leaving, so still, but we're still looking for another one. Yeah, because the school is actually growing. Like I've said, when I post the ad before, we're looking for pioneer teachers. So the school is just only a year, and I'm not exactly sure when it exactly started, but it's more than a year, because I'm already with the school more than a year now. So there. Okay, so any other questions?
None so far, Miss.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
I'll study all the things that you've said and the one that you've sent me, so
Yeah.
The next time for the orientation, I'll be asking you the questions.
Okay, sure, no problem. And I'm gonna make sure that these kids are already sleeping. Yeah, because I have another students already. I have 2 students after this. So,
Miss Michelle also asked me about why did I wait for ESL 101. So I was like saying that there are various companies that I've applied, but I really do not like how they handle the teachers, and I do not think they're fair enough. So I just waited for ESL 101 to open up a schedule, or at least to consider me in. I just said I'm just gonna be waiting for this company since I think the company understands more the teachers rather than earning a lot.
yeah, that's right. Um, yeah, I don't have any comment for that, but um, of course, we want to make sure that our teachers are well, you know, are not just our priority are our teachers, not just the students. There are just unfortunate incidents or, that happened that some of the teachers have to leave the school, and those are unavoidable incidents. And of course, it's not a miss on our part or on the management of the school. So we're hoping to be working with you,
Yes.
looking forward to that, Rechie. And well, that's it for tonight. So I'm just gonna give you, there will be more additional information that's gonna be followed under orientation packet 2. Okay?
Yes.
Alrighty, so thank you so much again. Have a great evening, Rechie. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.